Welcome back to Quick Notes with Chris. Today we're going to be talking about the book Daring Greatly by Brene. It's a really interesting book. In fact, it's so left-wing in terms of normal success books, which talk to you about being really sort of stoic, almost in nature, being very in control of your emotions and always striving towards the goal. This one talks about it more of an empathetic view, more of an authentic view. So if you're a different type of person who maybe resonates a little bit more with that versus a lot of the other success self-help books that are a little bit more sort of in your face and harsh, I highly suggest you give this book a read. There's probably a lot of concepts that they talk about whenever it comes to becoming a better person, whenever it comes to becoming a better leader, that you 100% can apply in your life to make sure that you do get better results out of it. But also, if you are the opposite type of person who's maybe a little bit more leaning towards the stoic, a little bit more hard style leadership, maybe you should read this book still or finish the book summary to give yourself a little bit of a alternate context to the different styles of leadership. So this one really talks about the power in being vulnerable. Very controversial topic because generally speaking, a lot of people don't view that if you're in a leadership perspective as something that you should do. But it talks about how it transforms how you live, how you love, how you parent, and how you lead whenever you learn to be vulnerable. See, especially as a man living in a toxic masculinity where it's like sort of, you can't necessarily be open about your feelings or let them be on the world for it to be on the line, I definitely understand where this book is coming from and how you can definitely take a page out of their notes and start applying it in your life. The first one it talks about is how by being vulnerable, it's literally a superpower because what it does is it allows you to be truly have a connection with others. Now, if you're in a team position where you're a leader, that's definitely applicable. And if you're in maybe a family or something like that, or just a general relationship, it's definitely applicable. But one thing that I didn't like about this book was that it didn't basically denote whether or not you live in a toxic environment. If you live in an environment that is negative, that is toxic, that is full of these people who, I guess, wouldn't necessarily react positively towards being vulnerable, then I don't think you should. And that's one thing the one takeaway from the book. It talked about this as if all the environments that you live in would be well receiving of your vulnerability, when the truth is they're not. They probably won't be. And it's your job to basically discern or make sure that you give up only certain levels of vulnerability. And that's something that I definitely think that the book was like a little bit, it's almost as if she lacked application within a negative environment whenever she was talking about being vulnerable towards these types of people. And I understand the benefits of doing it, but the only time in my opinion that it's really 100% there's going to be no drawback is if you do live in a positive environment. If you do live with, if you are engaging this technique within a sort of, I guess, team or a framework where it's used to people being vulnerable, or it's not people who have that like I'm a man type of thing, alright? And that's the thing that I think the book sort of lacked, because so many people, especially me, I knew growing up that if I was to be vulnerable, that it wouldn't be well received, especially to the extent that she's talking about. But something that I definitely do think is consistent is within if you had a partner, your love, 100%. If you are constantly lying to your lover about how you feel, if you're not being honest with your vulnerability, now the difference is you don't just want to start like sulking or crying for no reason. That's the thing that a lot of people will have a sort of misstep, is that they view being vulnerable as just being weak, when in truth it's just being honest with your personal feelings that you feel as if you should get off your chest. But the truth is that whenever you do get things off your chest, if you do it in the wrong way, all you're doing is enabling those feelings. For example, if they're negative thoughts that you're just talking negative about an individual, and you speak it out in a way where you're not trying to solve the problem, all you're looking for is enabling these feelings. And the truth is that those negative thoughts are going to lead towards a negative environment and negative circumstances. So you don't want to do it this way, but being vulnerable might be something along the lines of like, something that's undeniably okay is mourning over a loved one, mourning over a pet. Those types of things are something that should definitely never be hidden, no matter what your circumstances. And if you're around people who make fun of you for mourning or crying about over those certain excesses, you should distance yourself from those people, because those aren't good people. And I hands down 100% agree with you. If you're in an environment or relationship where you literally can't show true mourning because of whatever, I definitely think that you should distance yourself from those people. So when it comes to being vulnerable, it's all about articulating shame. Because how many times do you feel shameful about an event that you just bury and you deep down and you pretend like it's not something that you should ever talk about or relive in your mind? Well, the truth is, the only way to overcome that is definitely by articulating it. And I like the way that she used the words articulate, because articulate means you run through what happened and attached how you felt but you're not necessarily looking to enable your feelings. So something like public speaking. If you have such a huge fear of public speaking and you refuse to talk about it, then of course you're never going to overcome this fear or shame. However, if you were to articulate it, put your feelings into words without necessarily looking for enabling them or looking for someone to agree with you, more so understanding to provide a solution, then that's also going to help very much you overcome that type of obstacle. So I definitely suggest that people should start doing that, but I really like the way she used the word articulate, not just open up. Because too many people, whenever they open up about these negative events and stuff like that, they get caught in their feelings, and all that ends up happening is that you end up talking negative or just in ways that you shouldn't about people in order to basically feel better. For example, if you had an ex-girlfriend that maybe cheated on you and it ended really, really, really badly, speaking negative about her in a context where you're looking towards being vulnerable, all that's going to happen is you have a bunch of people who agree with what you're saying, and it's actually not going to necessarily make you feel it might make you feel better, but it's not going to be productive in the long term, because all it's doing is teaching you to handle and deal with these feelings that way, by looking towards a crowd or herd in order to basically enable your feelings. When the truth is that you should evaluate, look, that she was a bad person, I shouldn't be around her, but it's my responsibility because I ended up making the steps to get towards that type of relationship. What is it that I can do to learn from my mistakes to make sure I'm never there again? That type of professionalistic vulnerability is definitely what the book is more so leaning towards versus just, screw her, I don't like her. Like, that type of vulnerability is never going to be well received, and you shouldn't do it because A, it genuinely does make you look weak of a person, and then you lose respect for talking about someone like that. And B, it's just unproductive. It actually doesn't really solve any problems. However, if you look at it from it unbiasedly and articulate, which means you just express your feelings without the emotion being attached, while also providing what is something that you could have been doing, then you know that you're always striving towards becoming a better person. You're always striving to learn from your own mistakes versus being destined to repeat them. Because too many times, I see it all the time, people go through so many breakups and they keep falling for the same type of girl. That they fall into the same type of toxic relationship. There's certain aspect of something that fills their need, they're feeling, and so they feel good, but there's all of this baggage that the other person's bringing along that both parties need to address in order to be successful, or in order at least to have a level of healthiness, because all that ends up happening is they both destroy the relationships around them. And that comes from literally enabling their negative thoughts. All past relationships, they thought they were perfect, when in reality, no one's perfect. There's always something that you could have done, and that really talks about how you need to be daring. You need to be daring greatly to put yourself out there. Articulate this with the facts only and express definitely how you felt behind it and see if it's well received. If you're in teamwork, there's so many times where if you do put yourself out there and you do put yourself vulnerable, your team will respect you if you do it in the correct way. It's all about being vulnerable in the correct way. On top of that, definitely if you harbor such negative feelings and you never express it to at least one other person, it's going to eat you up inside. Especially if you feel guilty. Guilt is probably one of those ones that you definitely do need to get off your chest and express to someone else. That's one that you need to be vulnerable and talk to someone that you can care about, or talk to a few people that you care about, that you can trust, to make sure that you don't consistently feel that way. Because if guilt can definitely lead towards a huge amount of spiraling. So you want to make sure that if you do feel a level of guilt, rather than burying it deep down, you do be vulnerable and you do articulate it and you do talk to someone, whether it's a parent, a loved one, or a leader. And then finally it talks about leading. So once you understand this and master being vulnerable, then you should lead it into someone else. Understand that you should be the leader that people should aspire to be, and in order to be that involves being vulnerable. Every great leader at some point was vulnerable on multiple occasions, but it's all about being vulnerable in the right way. It's not about going on stage and crying. It's not about being a bumbling mess. It's all about articulating your hardships, articulating your, I'd say negative feelings that generally speaking a lot of people wouldn't talk about. And if you can do this effectively, then all that ends up happening is that there's a level of trust and honesty between you and your team. And that's really what you want to do, because that's a foundation of teamwork, is trust and honesty. And if they feel as if, wow, my leader can talk about this so openly, something that I wouldn't want to talk about, it's so vulnerable. Not that I'm ashamed of it. Well, I am ashamed of it, but I just wouldn't want to share it with anyone else. I feel like I can go to him with anything. So it creates a really solid foundation of trust, loyalty, and understanding that there literally isn't no boundaries. There's something that you can share with everyone. And if you can create that type of level of teamwork, then you're probably destined to make and achieve great things. Anyways, guys, that's it for Quick Notes with Chrisan on daring greatly. But don't stop there whenever it comes to improvement and putting yourself in a better position for success. I'll be uploading a few more videos for the rest of the day, but I'll see you guys in the next one.